Hello and welcome to Picture This, a podcast from the photo archives of the Albuquerque Museum. My name is Jill Hartke, and I am the Digital Archivist here at the museum. Today we are looking at the role New Mexicans played in World War I. The New Mexico National Guard has existed in one form or another since the 1500s. In the photo archives of the Albuquerque Museum is a photograph of the enlistment ceremony of men into the New Mexico National Guard in 1917. Here is the story behind the photograph. World War I began in 1914, but it wasn't until 1917 that the United States would join the Allied powers, fighting alongside France, Russia, Japan, the British Empire, and other countries against the Central Powers of Germany, the Ottoman Empire, Bulgaria, and Austria-Hungary. One of the catalysts of America's declaration of war hit close to home for New Mexicans. The Zimmerman telegram was a German telegram decoded by British intelligence officers that proposed Mexico and Germany become allies if America joined World War I. Germany asked Mexico to join its fight in Europe, and in return, Germany would help Mexico regain its lost territory in the United States, specifically Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. The United States was neutral during the first 3 years of the war, but the discovery of the Zimmerman telegram pushed America into action. Every county in New Mexico sent soldiers to fight. Across the country, Native Americans disproportionately were drafted or volunteered into service. In New Mexico, the pueblos held dances and donated the profits from their harvests to support the servicemen. The New Mexico Military Institute in Roswell sent over 300 young men to fight, and 163 entered service as officers. In all, more than 17,000 New Mexicans headed for Europe and Asia, and over 1,600 of them were from the New Mexico National Guard. Having only been a state for a few years before World War I, New Mexicans felt they had something to prove. They were among some of the first Americans to arrive on the battlefields and some of the last to leave. They served in France, Siberia, and China. They served in 20 of the 29 combat divisions of the Army. Their jobs included training replacements for other divisions, providing ambulance services, and guarding prisoners of war. General John J. Pershing became familiar with the New Mexico National Guard in 1916 during his punitive expedition chasing Pancho throughout Mexico after the raid on the town of Columbus, New Mexico. Pershing relied on the New Mexico National Guard and the United States 10th Cavalry Buffalo Soldiers to support his expedition into Mexico. The experience provided real-life war skills to those men, and for the New Mexican soldiers, the training would be needed shortly in France. The Buffalo Soldiers of the 10th Cavalry remained at the U.S.-Mexico border, and they did not see action in World War I in Europe. General John J. Pershing was tasked with leading the Americans in France. He asked specifically for Roswell's Battery A, 1st New Mexico Field Artillery, to join him in France. By the end of the war, Pershing commended the soldiers for firing more rounds in combat than all other U.S. heavy artillery units, and for destroying a bridge that served as Germany's main line of communication. The men of the Roswell Battery A earned 6 battle stars and medals for their service. Their commander, Lieutenant Colonel Charles de Bremond, inhaled poisonous gas on the battlefield in 1918 and later died from the effects. He was posthumously given the Distinguished Service Medal. Germany introduced the use of large-scale chemical weaponry to World War I in 1915. Poison gas became so prevalent that some historians refer to the First World War as the Chemist's War. It's estimated that by the end of the war, more than 5,000 scientists and technicians, joined by tens of thousands of industrial workers on both sides of the war, worked on chemical weaponry. By the time New Mexican soldiers arrived in Europe in 1917, mustard gas was being used heavily in combat. It was a frightening weapon. It could remain active anywhere from 1 day to several weeks, depending upon the season and the terrain of the battlefield. There was a constant fear of being recontaminated if you moved into an area where mustard gas had been used. In all, 523 soldiers from New Mexico were killed in the 20 months the United States fought in World War I. 93 are buried in military cemeteries in Europe. The battlefield claimed its share, but many of the men did not die in combat, but rather from the influenza epidemic that swept the globe in 1918. Armistice Day, or what we now call Veterans Day, in November of 1918, brought throngs of people out in Albuquerque, defying the stay-at-home orders due to the flu epidemic. They built bonfires over the streetcar tracks, waved flags, and celebrated the end of the war to end all wars. Still, many New Mexican soldiers wouldn't return home for another year, serving until September of 1919. A woman in Britain was the last known service member of World War I, and she passed away in 2012. World War I pushed America into a leadership role in global warfare. New Mexican soldiers, like those in our New Mexico National Guard enlistment photo, traveled the world and returned with a new outlook that would help to shape the future of the young state. Thank you for joining us for Picture This with the Albuquerque Museum. Please join us next time as we look at another photograph from the museum's collection.